Hello everybody and welcome to the premiere episode of Bourbon LO. Now LO stands for Loan Originator. For those of you that don't know, I do mortgage loans. I've done it for about 30 years and it's something I'm passionate about, but I'm also passionate about bourbon, and bourbon is just a lot more fun to talk about. I'm here today at Bardstown Bourbon Company. If you've never been here, it's a place that you have to visit. The facilities are insane. It's a beautiful place to be, and we're gonna taste through some of their bourbon today as well. So enjoy. So your first question is probably gonna be, what does bourbon have to do with mortgage lending? And the answer is nothing. But I'm here in this rick house for a reason. All of these barrels surrounding me are gonna produce something different. The stuff that's higher up in the rick house is gonna produce a higher proof bourbon than the stuff that sits lower where the temperature is cooler. And you can draw parallels between that and borrowers, and for my realtors in the audience, individual properties that are out there. That barrel may have more money down than this barrel. This barrel could be doing an FHA loan instead of a conventional, and that barrel up there may have more money down. When you talk about properties, the barrels that are higher up may represent a master bath on the first floor, or a ranch in a very desirable neighborhood. And where inventories are low for both bourbon and for real estate, there are some parallels there. And that's the kind of things I'm gonna talk about as we go through these videos to try and make it a little bit more fun, because we all know that mortgages are boring. Okay everybody, so we're here at Bardstown Bourbon Company. We've got a little bit of a surprise here. We have Andrew Newton, who is the
Visitor Experience Coordinator.
Visitor Experience Coordinator.
Tour guide.
I will tell you, when they agreed to let me come in here, I didn't expect this. And they have been most welcoming and really, without getting Andrew in trouble, giving us full run of the place. So we're gonna talk a little bit about some of their bourbon, but I also want Andrew to talk a little bit about some of the facilities here, because we're sitting now right adjacent to the rick house that I was in earlier, and this is called Pete's Place. So tell me about Pete's Place.
So Pete's Place, this is actually pays tribute to our founder, Pete Lofton. Pete was originally from North Carolina, entrepreneur, built a $1 billion business in the telecom industry, sold that business at some point and moved to Miami. Of course, was involved in lots of other business ventures, and then started Bardstown Bourbon Company in 2000. I think we broke around 2014, and 2016 our stills fired up. And so he really was the visionary behind the idea of collaborative distilling, which is something that's pretty unique to what we do. We try to be really transparent in what we're doing here. Make our own whiskey, bourbon, but we also produce for some of the finest brands in the world. Over 30. So some of them you might be familiar with, some of them maybe not so much. But Pete wanted to make his own bourbon and really couldn't find there was anybody offering a customizable from grain to glass type of distillation. So when someone wants to make a bourbon with us, they can choose where the grains are sourced from the farmer, all the way to where the glass is sourced, design the label, and everything in between, about 600 different production points.
So if I wanted to come to you, I could say, hey man, I want my own bourbon.
Yeah, I mean,
and I want you guys to make it.
More or less, yeah. It's a little more complicated than that, of course, without getting into some of the finer details. Their production minimums, obviously. We crank out about 334 barrels per day from the distillery, and I think the minimum is a day's worth of production. Of course, I'm sure that could vary. And then we've been fortunate too. The stills, the distillery is at capacity through the end of next year.
Wow.
So maybe even beyond.
Yeah.
So we're looking at expanding capacity.
Well, it's like I told you earlier, I do consider myself someone that's kind of plugged into bourbon, and I've been blown away by what I've seen here today. I mean, it is pretty nice. So we're gonna. I'm going to let you talk about it. The one we're going to taste is actually going to be part of the distillery collection, and it's the triple blended stave finish. And I can tell you, it's really good. It is available here in the gift shop only. You cannot buy this off the shelf anyplace else. So again, you're going to have to come down here and see this place anyway and pick up some of this.
Yeah,
all
totally
right,
fine,
so you're
yeah.
just going to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
I'll drink, you talk.
I'll let you do the drinking. I've had the great fortune of being able to try this many times.
Yeah.
Have a bottle at the house. I'm trying to nurse it because it's one of my favorite bottles. But the triple blended stay finish is something really, really special. And lots of experimentation going on around here. We like to call ourselves the modern bourbon distillery. We like to do things that maybe haven't been done before, or maybe in the past were considered taboo. But we did a lot of exploration with the triple blended stay finish. We ended up with two ryes blended with a 12-year Kentucky bourbon, and then finished for 3 weeks using naturally flavored oak staves, American white oak. And Independent Stave Company, one of the cooperages we work with, they have these flavored stave profiles, and they flavor these oak staves naturally using heat, charring, and methods of that sort. And so we picked out 4, which were representative of confectionery, baking spice, vanilla, and heavy char. Put them in at various ratios. We put them down in the blend, the 2 ryes and the 12-year Kentucky. Let it impart flavor into that blend for 3 weeks, and then pulled the staves out, blended it back with a 17-year bourbon. And it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, again, someone picked one of these up for me here, and I tried it on a whim, and I was blown away. And get to experience it again is good. I do get, we talked a little bit about that smoky nose that's on there, but the flavor is outstanding. So I love what you guys are doing here.
Appreciate that.
I really do. So we're going to call in a celebrity taster. I've got my good friend Alex Smallwood with me. I don't know if we can pull in a chair.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, actually, if you want to sit in my space.
All right.
Yeah.
We haven't worked out the camera angles yet, so I mean, we'll make sure. So, thank you again, Andrew.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Awesome. So, I'm going to bring in Alex Smallwood, good buddy of mine. I met him through bourbon. Alex is also a realtor with Keller Williams in Lexington. And so we're going to talk a little bit. I would say, without reservation, that Alex has a lot more talent when it comes to tasting bourbon, that type of thing. He's able to pick out individual notes, and I'm just like, man, that's really good. So I know you've tasted this also, Alex. Tell me a little bit about what you think about it.
It's one of the most complex releases I think I've had this year, and you all did release this.
Yeah, I think it's recent,
Andrew?
Right?
Yeah. So as far as 2021 releases, it's hard to get something that takes you on a journey. You're tasting the complexity of having those different spirits in there, with the rye and then the Kentucky bourbon and then the older bourbon at the end there. So I think from that you are getting a lot of those baking spices that we mentioned from the rye, but then the candied sweetness on top of it as well. Definitely a ton of that smokiness on the nose. The palate, the oak does shine through. Not as viscous as some of the stuff that we were tasting in the Rick House earlier, but the mouthfeel is great. It does coat while also being smooth and not burning you out.
Are we allowed to talk about tasting in the Rick House earlier?
Sure.
Yeah. All I know is there was a barrel and a thief. So what are you supposed to do? So cheers, Alex.
Cheers.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I do want to try and commingle in some real estate with the bourbon stuff. That's why one of the reasons I asked Alex to come along with this. So we were talking a little bit earlier about how to draw those parallels between real estate and bourbon, and what we decided to focus on was a little bit of just the inventory. We do have people in the bourbon industry that are chasing trucks, and they're overpaying in some instances to get something that's scarce. And I know we talked a lot about inventory issues in real estate. Do we see that letting up at all?
I wish. So we're still at a historically low time as far as inventory numbers of the houses available for sale on the market. No shortage of buyers looking.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you know with the mortgage loan application numbers.
Plenty of truck chasers,
Yeah.
if you would.
Those numbers haven't changed too much, but with the increase in the number of wholesalers in the real estate market, which is kind of the equivalent of those truck chasers in the bourbon market that are coming by and scooping up everything they can.
Yeah.
And I mean, credit to them, they're putting in some sweat equity.
Yeah.
They are sending out all those mailers, blowing up everyone's phone, or the liquor store's phone, and the miles driving around knocking on doors or stopping by those different liquor stores. But
meanwhile, the first-time homebuyer / person that actually drinks their bourbon is suffering a little bit, and that's fine. Hey, wholesalers are fine. We're not going to tear you up too bad on this. There's a place for that, but again, with that inventory, it does make it tough on the first-time home buyers. So
or your Blanton's drinkers.
Or your Blanton's drinkers.
If we could get houses constructed as fast as Bardstown Bourbon Company is putting up their rick houses, we might not have as big of an inventory issue.
That is true. It is insane. They're going up quick, but again, amazing place out there. You have to come check it out.
And don't forget to visit the restaurant.
So yeah, there's your touch of real estate for this thing. I will tell you, it's my first episode. We're going to figure this thing out and decide on a good balance between bourbon and mortgages and real estate. I would say it's going to be heavier bourbon most of the time, but that's what makes it fun. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Okay, to the first episode of the Bourbon LO.